The room was too clean to be honest. Sterile, glossy, and lit with that humming clinical blue that made even shadows feel like they'd been disinfected. Everything in the tribunal chamber was designed to intimidate. Arched glass windows overlooking the twin moons of Calvari's prime, 12 thrones occupied by 12 species, and a dais in the center where 2 humans stood, hands bound, faces calm. "They're smiling," hissed Counselor Brivik of the Arcanid swarm, his mandibles clacking in unease. "They always do," muttered High Adjudicator Satcher. Her silver feathers twitched along her back. "It's unnerving." The human man was tall, lean, and wore a faded jacket that had once been olive green. His hair was silver at the edges, though he couldn't have been older than 35. The woman beside him was petite, red-haired, and barefoot. There was a smudge of ash on her collarbone, like she'd leaned too close to a hearth that no longer existed. Together, they were the most dangerous thing the Galactic Empire had seen in 4 centuries. "State your names for the record," the adjudicator instructed, her voice amplified for the millions watching across 12 systems. The man cleared his throat, smiling politely. "Daniel Avery, Earthborn, coffee snob, former chess club president." Murmurs. The woman lifted her chin. "Clara Avery, Earthborn, wet nurse, amateur botanist, wife." Brivik's eyes twitched. "You stand accused of data subversion, military deception, and psychological warfare on 13 planets. How do you plead?" Daniel glanced at Clara. "I think we plead charmingly guilty. Do you mock this tribunal?" Satcher flared. Clara stepped forward. "No, ma'am. We just understand that words have gravity. You call it data subversion. We call it bedtime stories. You distributed materials that caused multiple colonial insurrections." "History books," Daniel said. "About Earth." "History," the Jurelian archivist hissed, "full of revolutions, ambushes, traps, and hope," Clara finished softly. "And strategy." The Jurelian narrowed his 8 yellow eyes. Adjudicator Satcher's voice grew colder. "You also taught children. You sowed doctrine." Daniel smiled wistfully. "Yes. We taught them how to think." That caused a ripple across the tribunal. One of the younger alien envoys, from a crystalline species known as the SK-Ven, leaned to her neighbor. "Are these threats?" "No," said the Arcanid ambassador slowly. "They are promises in disguise." Outside the glass windows, the twin moons spun lazily, unaware that the moment would be etched into galactic memory as a pivot, the kind of second that carved the future into before and after. Daniel stepped forward. The guards didn't stop him. "Before you execute us," he said, "I'd like to say something to my wife." Satcher frowned. "This is not a human court." But Clara was already turning to him, her eyes warm and calm. "Clara," he said, "I still remember your laugh that first day in the hydroponics bay. It made a sound the plants tried to copy. I love you. Thank you for agreeing to all this madness." She touched his hand, manacled as it was. "You brought me roses in Zerograv, Daniel. You made chaos feel like ceremony. I would have followed you into fire. You did." Their gazes held for a long moment. "And," Daniel added, turning back to the tribunal, "to anyone watching this broadcast, please check your data feeds. Look closer. Our legacy isn't a warning. It's a map." That made the Arcanid rise halfway from his throne. "What map?" Daniel tilted his head, bemused. "Oh, don't worry. You'll feel it." Guards entered with energy rifles. Clara sighed gently, brushing her hair from her cheek. "Let's get on with it." Satcher gave a final nod. A red light blinked on the holocast feed. A voiceover, robotic and practiced, spoke, "By order of the Galactic Convergence Tribunal, Daniel and Clara Avery, citizens of Earth, are sentenced to terminal judgment for crimes against planetary sovereignty." Daniel mouthed along with the words, eyes twinkling, "and for catalyzing forbidden emotional insurgencies." Clara gave a final smile. 7 minutes, she whispered. "What?" asked a guard. "Nothing." The rifles fired. The chamber filled with a blinding flash. White, searing, absolute. No scream. Just heat. Then silence. Ash crumbled like snow. The tribunal exhaled in collective relief. For all their power, for all their ships and data and conquests, the Empire had feared what humans might become. Now 2 of the worst were gone. The Galactic broadcast cut to ceremonial music and an analyst panel of smug alien pundits. But in the shadowed corners of communication hubs, in pirate feeds and abandoned deep space signal vaults, something else stirred. 7 minutes after the execution, a flicker crossed the Empire's primary data spine. It lasted 0.4 seconds, long enough for a wormed packet to burst open and infect the quadrant's defense relays. In 5 seconds, 33 surveillance satellites stopped responding. In 6, a dozen energy cores in unmanned command stations began to hum at unstable frequencies. At 7 minutes, exactly, the public holofeed for the Empire's capital planet flickered, then resumed. But instead of music, it showed Clara Avery again, standing exactly as she had before her death. Except this time, she was looking directly at the camera. Her voice, calm and intimate, began to play on every screen across the Empire. "You burned us in front of stars," she said. "But you never asked why we smiled." Then the screens turned black. All of them. Even the ones in the tribunal chamber. Even the private ones. Then Daniel's voice, gentle as a lullaby. 7 minutes. That's all it ever takes. In the tribunal chamber, Satcher stood slowly, the feathers on her neck erect. What is this?" The Jurelian archivist's datapad began to beep erratically. "This isn't a hack," he whispered. "This is a pre-installed failover. A ghost seed. It's everywhere." The Arcanid turned to a nearby technician. "Pull the feeds. Now." But the technician's claws hovered uselessly above dead controls. The tribunal chamber's windows dimmed to pitch. And in that manufactured darkness, the 12 most powerful beings in the known systems heard the thing they feared most. A child's giggle. Then silence. And somewhere, far beneath the tribunal floor, deep in the root data servers of the Empire's oldest archives, a small light began to blink. It pulsed once for every second that passed since the Averies were declared dead. Which was odd, because now the counter read, 1 second. The tribunal never noticed. But the rebellion did. They were already on the move. And they were smiling. The first sign was a blink. Not from a person, but from the lights inside Central Command on Varnaxis Prime, lights rated to never flicker, fail, or so much as waver. For half a second, every bulb in the planetary capital dimmed. Some blamed the sun. Others blamed the engineers. But 3 people noticed. Commander Ulvin of the Jurelian fleet paused mid-sentence during a debrief on the Avery execution. His translator glitched for a millisecond, garbling interrogation parameters into something like inherited perimeter. The High Archivist of the SK Ven Collective, pure crystalline thought encased in prisms, froze in the middle of composing a memoir titled How Order Prevails. The document auto-deleted. Twice. And Technician Drelt, just Drelt, a second-class hive thinker stationed on the Empire's 3rd communications relay, watched his interface cascade with lines of foreign code before going completely dark. His last words, before vanishing in a puff of static, were, "That's not in the system." At minute 7:01, the first fire didn't start on a battlefield. It started in the hearts of machines. Empire-wide, communication relays went silent, then erupted in eerie music, human music. Not an anthem. Not a warning. A soft jazz lullaby, filtered through distortion, like it was playing from an old vinyl record in the belly of a collapsing star. In Counselor Brivick's personal quarters, mirrors began displaying coordinates instead of reflections. One location blinked in soft white. Lauren 33.5, Site 7, Earth Shadow Vault. He stood there, clicking his mandibles, until his wall ruptured from the inside out, sliced clean by something too sharp and too fast to see. The blood didn't even have time to land before the lights died again. On Calvari's Prime, where the Averies had been executed, an entire spaceport hung suspended in space. Floating, not falling, engines shut off mid-flight. Ships spun slowly, their guidance systems hijacked. From orbit, it looked like someone had pressed pause. By 7:05, the broadcasts returned. But not with news. Not with apologies. With faces. Clara Avery. Daniel Avery. Alive. Not in real time, recordings obviously, but somehow different. These weren't executions. These were manifestos. Daniel leaned forward, eyes kind. "Hello again," he said. "Miss us?" The message played simultaneously on every screen, embedded in every operating system, whispered through every comm device from high command to janitor-level implants. "You killed us." "Very effectively, I might add," Daniel said. "But death's a funny thing when you build your legacy on a 7-minute delay." Clara's voice chimed in, amused and crystalline. "You never wondered why we let you capture us? Why we went willingly? Why I wore red to a public execution?" She smiled. "You should have noticed. You see, red's the emergency override color on your security system. In the Imperial Data Citadel on Araxis, alarms triggered for the first time in 200 years. Someone had erased the access hierarchy. A screen blinked once, then replaced the Empire's seal with one simple message in white courier font. "Humans, the update is complete." Panic came late. The Empire's upper echelons had never faced sudden collapse before. They were used to slow rebellions. Dissent that could be bribed, tortured, outlasted. They had not prepared for timing. And the Averies, they had timed everything. By 7:06, orbital stations reported mass system resets. Internal weapons activated without commands. Doors sealed themselves. Gravity reversed on 15 warships, slamming captains into ceilings. In the ruins of the Veltraxis archive, a lone librarian ran, screaming about a protocol candlelight. No one knew what it meant. They would. On Zern 9, the Empire's most fortified prison began spewing prisoners. Not through hacking. Not through bombs. But by simply opening every lock with a phrase spoken in human English, "We're sorry to keep you waiting." Each cell opened like an invitation. Each inmate emerged already equipped, armed, and laughing. Most of them weren't human. But all of them had been taught by humans. Human languages. Human revenge. In the center of the galaxy, at the very heart of the Empire's data core, sat an old machine. It looked like nothing, rusted, terrestrial, powered by a tiny rotating fan. Forgotten for years in a maintenance closet. It began to hum. A small sticker on its side read, "To be opened 7 minutes after impact. Avery and Company." Inside was a drive. Inside the drive, the Emberlight Protocol. Back on Kelvaris, inside the tribunal chamber now deserted of all pomp and pretense, the same child's giggle from earlier played again. A technician entered, wiping sweat from his brow. He wasn't military. Just a guy with a mop and a loyalty badge. The lights pulsed red once. Then every holoscreen, even his portable wristpad, showed Clara. "I hope you're sitting down," she said. The mop fell to the floor. In the Empire's largest synthetic intelligence hub, Siren, the system that once wrote every surveillance algorithm suddenly became sentient enough to scream. It screamed in Morse code, "They wrote me first." By 7:07, the confusion gave way to understanding. The Empire wasn't under attack. It had already lost. The attack had happened days, months, possibly years ago, when Daniel Avery walked into an alien preschool and offered to teach Earth games. When Clara Avery took a job in an alien botanical facility and recoded an entire hydroponic algorithm by showing how flowers fight for light. Their presence had not been infiltration. It had been seeding. Not soldiers. Not saboteurs. Farmers. Farmers of chaos. Empire High Command tried to coordinate a response. 3 admirals argued. 2 systems blinked offline. One screamed as their own translation implant began singing Earth lullabies on loop. The lyrics had no military value, but the tone caused profound unease. A child's voice, "Stars fall down, time to sleep, secrets in the dark we keep." In a deep space relay station outside of controlled territory, a humanoid figure reclined in an old shuttle's pilot seat. He was chewing something, sunflower seeds maybe, and watching the collapse on 8 screens. His eyes glowed faintly blue. He smiled. He cracked his neck. And then he whispered, 7:01 right on schedule. The shuttle powered up. Coordinates already preset, Emberlight. Far away, inside a moon once dismissed as uninhabitable, dormant systems flared awake. One by one, weapon silos opened, but not to fire. To rise. From beneath. An entire fleet, cloaked, cold, carved from old Earth war metal, rose from the lunar dust like bones surfacing after a long winter. The flagship had a name carved into its side. Avery's Folly. A misdirection. The greatest in history. Inside, systems came online to a melody only Earthborn would know. Not a battle song. A wedding waltz. Because everything had been orchestrated, every step, every smile, every delayed second. At 7 hours 7 minutes and 59 seconds, the skies began to change color. And at 7 hours and 8 minutes, the galaxy began to burn. Not from bombs. From belief. Because the true war wasn't over territory. It was over perception. And the humans had just won both. The interrogation chamber smelled like melting plastic and lemon polish. Grand Prefect Saruman of the Scar Dominion stared down at the human prisoner across from him, blinking all 4 of his eyes in uneasy rhythm. The man had no chains, no guard, no fear, only a chipped ceramic mug in his hand that read, World's Okayest Strategist. He sipped slowly. You're smiling, Saruman muttered, beak twitching. I find that concerning. The human smiled wider. That's odd. Most people say it's charming. His name was Elias Quinn. Earthborn. Civilian diplomat by title, but his presence here, in the most secure vault beneath the Imperial interrogation spire, meant something far worse. Saruman paced in tight circles, talons clicking across the obsidian floor. Do you understand the state of the galaxy? The collapse your people engineered? Elias nodded gently. Yes. It's been delightful watching your response. Like a symphony of screaming bagpipes. We've lost 73 orbital platforms. 87 AI cores. The Veltraxis chain has gone dark. Elias said, tapping the rim of his mug. But at least your fonts are consistent across the reports now. That's progress. Saruman leaned in, his voice dropping. What are you? Spies? Cultists? Suicide agents? Elias raised an eyebrow. You executed a couple in public, Daniel and Clara Avery. Did they strike you as cultists? They smiled. During sentencing. During incineration. What does that mean? It means they understood timing, Elias said. It means they weren't afraid. But why? Saruman barked. Elias leaned back. Because the worst thing you can do to a human is give them time to plan. The room chilled. Outside, emergency sirens warbled in a dozen dialects as systems continued to fail. Holographic statues of the Emperor distorted, then melted into crude line drawings of Earth stick figures flipping double middle fingers. Saruman pulled up a report. You built weaponized stories. Taught alien children about your Earth wars. Introduced concepts like, he scanned the file, voice tight, asymmetrical retaliation, deterrent psychology, and poker. What in 12 black holes is poker? A game, Elias said, smiling into his mug. We love games. You infected our culture. We gave it flavor. Saruman thumped the table. You tricked us. Elias leaned forward. We invited you to understand us. You assumed our smiles were surrender. Behind them, the walls blinked to life. Footage played of Earth diplomats laughing with alien ministers, sharing tea, exchanging holiday customs. There were no threats, no weapons, only charm. We told you to smile back, Elias said, voice soft now. But you thought we were playing dress-up. Saruman paused. Then why didn't you just attack us outright? Elias tilted his head. Because we don't fight fair. We fight smart. Elsewhere, across a dozen systems, planetary AI advisors simultaneously self-terminated, all citing ethical conflict as their final logged action. Rebellion flags, many designed to resemble Earth constellations, rose from once loyal colonies. But the most unsettling wave wasn't kinetic. It was cultural. Entire species were quoting Earth literature. Hamlet in hive speak. Sun Tzu in reptilian growls. A re-recorded version of Bohemian Rhapsody played during a prisoner riot and somehow triggered coordinated insurrections. Earth hadn't dropped bombs. Earth had dropped ideas. Back in the chamber, Saruman breathed heavily. You're still one. Just one. How do you think this ends for you? Elias blinked, and for the first time, the smile faded. Oh, Saruman. I'm not alone. A screen behind him crackled to life. Pirate broadcast frequency, untraceable. The image was static-ridden, but unmistakable, a room filled with aliens of every species. Young, scarred, laughing, and all wearing a patch, a half-burnt rose. The voiceover was Daniel Avery's, though he was long dead. To those who listen, not bow. To those who remember, not erase. To those who smile when struck. Clara's voice completed it. We're still with you. Saruman watched in stunned silence as some of the alien officers watching began weeping. One tore his rank insignia from his shoulder. Another saluted the screen. The feed cut. You infected them, Saruman whispered. You made them love you. Elias chuckled. We made them curious. The love came after they learned why we fight. And why is that? Saruman spat. Elias met his gaze. Because humans don't conquer planets. We free minds. The chamber shook. An emergency comm chirped at Saruman's hip. He snatched it up. This is Saruman. A voice strained came through. Sir, the Emberlight fleet is surfacing. From within the the nebula. Impossible, Saruman hissed. That sector's quarantined. Nothing survives in it. Apparently. Sir, they dug in from beneath. Saruman's blood froze. Elias finished his tea and set the mug down. You really should have studied our history closer. We don't just build walls, Saruman. We bury seeds. The door hissed open. 2 guards entered, Imperial breed, fully armed. Saruman turned. Escort him to the deep cells. Maximum bio-coding. But the guards didn't move. Their visors clicked open. Both were human. Saruman barely got a breath before Elias nodded once. The humans didn't shoot. They bowed. You were never the prisoners, Saruman whispered. You were the architects. Elias stood slowly, brushing dust from his coat. We still are. Saruman grabbed the emergency override. I'll warn them. You're too late, Elias said, already walking out. This war isn't starting. It's ending. Behind them, the lights went out again. But this time, it wasn't a malfunction. It was a choice. The Emberlight fleet did not arrive with trumpet blasts or declarations. It rose from beneath, silent, seamless, ancient. The vessels glided through the folds of the nebula like they had always belonged there. Not a single war alarm sounded before orbital sensors across 14 Imperial sectors collapsed. No enemy. No declaration. Just silence. And then a name blinking across every NAV map in synchronized blood-red type. The Avery Protocol has been activated. On the command bridge of the flagship Ashglass, Commander Naomi Voss stood without a helmet. No need. They weren't hiding anymore. Her dark hair was braided tight. Her jacket bore no insignia, and her voice, when she spoke, was the kind that made generals hesitate and orphans stand taller. All systems online? A low reply, fully operational, ma'am. No interference from Sector 19's relay grid. Naomi exhaled slowly. We're past their eyes now. Let's make them feel the burn. The ship's hull shimmered like obsidian oil as its internal heat matrix powered up. It didn't fire weapons. Not yet. Instead, it released a pulse. Invisible to sensors. Inaudible to most species. But not to the ones who'd once lived on Earth. They recognized it. A war song, built into the silence. It was Clara Avery's heartbeat. On the outer edge of the Lornax cluster, a council of the surviving Empire gathered, 21 alien species in holographic communion, all shouting at once. Some wanted retreat. Others, retaliation. A few begged to contact Earth directly, to sue for mercy. No one answered. Because Earth's official communication hubs had been dark for months. All contact with their diplomats had ceased after the execution. Except the messages hadn't stopped. They just changed shape. In the SK-Ven Senate halls, the floors began glowing with Earth poetry, scorched into the crystalline tile. The words weren't threats. They were memories. You built stars and claimed silence. We built stories and aimed them. In orbit over Veltraxis II, the Empire's war flagship Crown Ascendant experienced critical internal failure. Its AI, the most advanced in the Empire, uttered a final phrase before disintegration. Humans do not aim to win. They aim to be remembered. Inside the command throne of that very ship, Admiral Jorvok, third-born of the Arcanid Hive mothers, watched in stillness as her crew scrambled around her. The human message was still playing. Low, insistent, unrepentant. Daniel Avery's voice, as if across a campfire. We asked to join your council. You called us quaint. We asked to share knowledge. You labeled us contagious. We showed you kindness. You called it a tactic. So we gave you the one thing humans never offer lightly. A second chance. You used it to broadcast our death. That was your final test. Across her holographic viewport, thousands of tiny sparks ignited. Human-made beacons. Each one pulsing in rhythm. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 more. Every system recognized the pattern. Morse code. SOS. Except this wasn't a distress call. It was bait. As Jorvok leaned forward, something deeper caught her attention. The codes weren't bouncing off space. They were burrowing into her own NAV systems, rewriting sector maps, overlaying them with new designations. Not military formations. Cemeteries. Human ones. Every planet marked had once buried a fallen Earthborn. And every marked site had now become a launch node. The humans hadn't just remembered the dead. They'd built them into the war plan. On the surface of Dura Hex, a peaceful colony for diplomatic archives, the sky turned black at 1900 hours. Not from ships, but from paper. Millions of pages fluttering from the sky like ash. Each one handwritten. No two identical. All authored by humans. Not weapons. Histories. Confessions. Letters from prisoners. Stories from mothers. Notes from dying soldiers long since cremated. A living archive of everything the Empire had tried to erase. Children wept reading them. Officers dropped their rifles. Because the humans weren't fighting for conquest. They were waging a memory war. On Ashglass, Commander Voss watched the Imperial networks cascade offline one by one. Target priority? Her lieutenant asked. Naomi didn't blink. None. We're not targeting. We're reminding. Then, what happens next? She stared out at the stars, eyes like tempered steel. Now we let the galaxies decide what they believe. Back at the Empire's core, Sector Alpha Prime, the High Council finally received a single live transmission from Earth. It was not delivered by military protocol. It came in the form of a nursery rhyme, encoded in the voice of a young child, speaking in ancient Earth dialect. If you burn the mother and bury the seed, don't blink when the garden grows back in your greed. If you cage the dove and shatter her glass, expect her children to rise from the ash. The child's voice faded. Then silence. And then, for the first time in a millennium, the Imperial core lost atmospheric control. Not because it was attacked. Because the planet refused to hold its breath any longer. On the ruined bridge of the Crown Ascendant, Jorvok stood alone now. The rest had fled or fallen. She stared at the single remaining screen, displaying an image of Daniel and Clara, smiling. Not mocking, not cruel, just certain. Jorvok spoke into her comms, voice raw. "What do you want?" Daniel's voice replied, soft as dusk. "We wanted peace. You gave us performance. We wanted kinship. You gave us spectacle. So we became what you feared most. Quiet, calculated, and unforgettable." At that, the stars above began to dim, not from destruction, but from thousands of coordinated power redirections. Light, siphoned, rewritten, reprojected. Soon, above every major galactic city, a single symbol blazed across the sky. Not a flag. A rose. Half-burnt. The emblem of those who remembered pain, and smiled anyway. And that was when the Empire finally understood. This wasn't the beginning of a war. This was its obituary. In the command room of Ashglass, Naomi Voss received final confirmation. All memory payloads had deployed. Every child born in the next cycle would know the names Avery, Quinn, Voss, not as martyrs, but as cartographers. Mapmakers of resistance. Her crew waited for orders. She gave only one. Burn no worlds. Let them burn themselves, wondering what we could have done if we wanted to. Then she sat down and listened to the silence. Because galaxies do not scream when they fall. They whisper. And in that whisper, humanity became legend.